My Hero 1 Justice is a pretty darn good game, bar some odd quirks here and there that hold it back from being a fantastic game. Based on the superhero shonen anime of the same name, which I am a huge fan of, the license is used quite well in most cases, but sometimes the game gets a little bit lazy with some of the content on display. But let's start from the top and talk about the story first and foremost. The story of the game is something that's a bit hard to talk about if you aren't currently caught up in the show or the manga, or have at least read or watched past chapter 94 or episode 49. Without spoilers, the game touches on a bit of the young hero's internships, which covers the tutorial with Gran Torino, early villain fights with Stain, the introduction of Best Girl during a certain camping training trip, and of course the climactic battle between two titans of good and evil. If you've gotten past these parts, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and if not, well, I advise you catch up if you're behind on the series. For fans, the story is a fun, playable Cliff Notes version of all that has happened in the story, and it is indeed cool to play through certain moments that have come to life here. For new fans of the series who might not care about spoilers, you'll still enjoy the story on offer, you might just not get everything from it. The narrative is thankfully fairly easy to follow regardless of which party you belong to, but the problem comes with the presentation of the story sections outside the gameplay. Unfortunately, while there are a few pretty well done in-game cutscenes, 90% or so of the game's story is told through stylized manga panels consisting of stills from the show and some posed in-game models. The flow of the panels is alright, but I would have rather preferred they either fully animate more cutscenes in engine or just use clips from the show. Another thing is, while I don't mind the story being just a retelling of the previous series events, I do wish the game was more along the line of Two Heroes being an original one-off story instead. I am really glad that they didn't go the Xenoverse route, however, because I don't think I would have enjoyed the game as much if I was playing as a forced-in self-insert to the events of the game, instead of showing how they just naturally unfolded. I was excited when I noticed that once I beat the main hero side of the story that there was a villains mode, but unfortunately, a good majority is just reused cutscenes from the hero's story, with just not enough new content thrown in to warrant a dual campaign. I will reiterate that even if the main story was just an adaptation, it would have been nice if the villains had their own original story arc. Sort of like with the story, the characters are exactly how they should be, but if you already know what will happen, then you also already know the characters quite well. This is another reason I wish it was an original story instead, because I would have liked to see new interactions with the cast of wonderful characters we already know and love. The playable cast is rather large, with 19 characters unlocked right off the bat, and a 20th character unlocked once you beat the main hero's story. There are also 2 paid-for DLC characters that I'm choosing not to count, along with a free alternative version of Midoriya. Sadly, those hoping to be able to play as characters such as Mina or Toru won't be able to, as their only appearance in the game is in a single cutscene ripped straight from the show. It's a shame, since at least Mina would have been a really good addition to the cast gameplay-wise. Outside the story mode, where you go down a fairly linear branching path of the main story and some optional side stories, there are a few other gameplay modes. There's an arcade ladder mode, where you compete in increasingly difficult battles while you make your way up, a mission mode where you unlock more customization options for your heroes that aren't available to get in the main story mode, and of course a free battle mode, where you pick and choose whatever character you want to play as and fight. I'm honestly not that great at fighting games, but One Justice was surprisingly easy to get into and get the hang of. Instead of being a fighting game on a 2D plane like a lot of other fighting games, it is a more open 3D fighter with some good breathing room in each of the arenas you'll fight in. The controls are actually really great in my opinion, and the simple nature of the combat is honestly a plus. Instead of fussing over multiple hard to remember combos, the game has 3 buttons for attack, with a base, range, and heavier attack mapped to each button. You also have the ability to double jump, dash through the air, and block. Blocking not only can sometimes prevent you from taking a hit if your block meter is full, it also allows you to perform your plus ultra move if your meter is filled up and you hit your ranged attack button at the same time as your block button. You also perform a grab attack with a combination of the block and light attack. You can also perform slightly stronger attacks by holding down the button of the attack you are wanting to perform after doing said move. Over time, by either dealing or taking hits, you charge up your plus ultra meter, and in certain battles, if you finish the battle by using your special move, you'll get some extra unlockables. Each fighter, even though they all had similar movesets, still felt unique enough from both an animation and gameplay standpoint. It was great seeing how each character would use their quirk for their combat styles. During certain parts of the main story, you were given the choice of which character you could play as, and by choosing one, the other character, if provided, would become your support, hopping in and potentially giving you aid or dealing extra damage when called in. You could have up to 2 other support characters in the normal fighting mode. I really liked the user-friendly take on combat, as I picked it up really quickly after the tutorial, and while the game was still challenging, I never found it impossibly hard like some fighting game story modes out there. Sure, I lost a good few times here and there, but it was mainly because I really wasn't being smart with my moves. Everything just felt smooth and comfortable to control, and it just made the game more fluid and fun. As you complete story challenges and mission levels, you unlock a whole heap of extra content ranging from gallery extras to cosmetics for each character, along with titles and other player icons and the like. The reward system kept challenges from feeling stale, as it gave you more incentive to keep playing, so you would get more stuff to play around with in the solo battle modes against CPUs. You would also gain in-game currency for gaining certain letter ranks for your performance to unlock costumes and other things sooner without having to do the challenges associated with what you're wanting to unlock. You also gained experience in the mission modes, but I couldn't figure out what that or leveling up here did. A lot of love was put into the art for the game, right down to even the menus and the loading screen icon, which is a very cute chibi rendition of Uraraka. The game just looks downright fantastic, and the 3D renditions of the characters look spot on to their 2D counterparts. Each of the varied stages looked really nice overall, filled with some random stuff laying around to make the area feel more alive. Also, like the anime it's based off of, the game's color palette is bright and as far from muted as can be. The character models are absolutely top quality, and it just makes me wish they had more cutscenes using them even more, as seeing them in introductions to each battle was great. In-game, the models move well, and even had good expressions put into them. It was fun to see just how over the top and silly I can make a character look in the customizer, and let me just say the results can be pretty obnoxious looking. There's also some really fun fan service you can unlock to add on to certain characters. There's a decent handful of recognizable stages to fight in, even if I do wish there were a few more added in to spice up the main campaign's list of levels. What was a really nice touch about each level was the fact that they could be pretty much destroyed with a lot of debris and damage raining around you and your enemy while you beat the ever-living daylights out of each other. With that said, that acts as a pretty good segue into the performance of the game. While the game itself usually ran well on average, that's not to say the game doesn't have issues with slowdown, because that is definitely something that will occur during large-scale battles with lots going on screen. It's also a bit scary when my Switch starts to sound like it's a spaceship preparing to take launch, with how much the fans would start to spin in some of the heavier areas in the game. Thankfully, I can say the game never became unplayable, even with some of the slowdown. While I'm not sure if the voice acting is taken directly from the show recordings or is freshly recorded for the game like the battle intros are, I can at least say it all sounded great. The Japanese voice cast is wonderful as always, but if for some reason you were hoping for an English dub to be included, you'll not find it here. The music is also really good, fitting the heroic tone the game sets out to have. Sound effects for quirks and other attacks and damage had a nice punch to them with impact. And with all that said, bar a few minor problems here and there, My Hero 1 Justice is honestly a great fighting game that I just wish still isn't as expensive as it is. While there is plenty of content in the game on offer, the price point of $60 for a game that's nearly a year old is a bit steep in my opinion. I managed to get the game on sale, but your luck will vary depending on the platform you get it on and when you decide to buy it. Still, regardless of the current high price point for the game is still an excellent time, putting aside the few gripes I have with it. The gameplay is a tight experience, and even if you skip out on the story mode, there's still a lot of other gameplay modes you can have a good time in. Returning fans like myself will no doubt enjoy how everything is presented on the character and graphical side of things, and new fans of the show, and fans of fighting games in general, will have a good experience with the game itself. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to help support the show, please consider sharing this video with a friend, or checking out my Patreon linked in the description below. If you have any requests for future reviews or comments, please leave them down in the comments below. A big thank you to my patrons Gemstar Gold and Project Nova. As always, this is Thierry Williamson, signing off until the next video. See you guys!